The ground shook under the prison like something heavy had slammed into it. Dust fell from the ceiling. A loud siren screamed across the halls of ADX Florence, America's highest security prison, the place they call the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The walls were thick concrete. The doors were steel. No one had ever escaped. Not once. But today, something impossible had just happened. Officer Daniel White ran down the long hallway of the control center, his boots echoing so loudly that they mixed with the alarm. His heart pounded. Sweat rolled down his forehead even though the room was cold. On the wall of screens in the control room, one cell camera was showing nothing but black static. A sound kept coming from the speaker, soft tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone was hitting the camera with a metal object. The inmates were on 23-hour lockdown. No one should have been out of their cells. No one should have had anything metal. No one should have been able to disable a camera in ADX Florence. Daniel shouted, "How is that possible? How did cell 37 go dark?" No one had an answer. On the screen beside it, another camera flickered. The image twisted like the electronics were being pulled apart. The picture blinked once, twice, and then something showed up for half a second. Something terrifying. A man's shadow standing in the middle of the hallway. A man who was not supposed to be outside his cell. Then the picture cut out. The entire control center fell silent, even though the siren was still screaming. Daniel felt his stomach twist. Cell 37 belonged to Marcus Hale, one of the most dangerous prisoners in the country. A man known for planning things months, even years ahead. A man who never spoke. A man who once told a guard, "Everything has a weakness, even the strongest walls." No one believed he could break ADX. Until now. Daniel grabbed his radio. "All teams to cell Block D immediately. We have a breach." He sprinted toward the thick steel door that led deeper into the prison. The lights flickered above him. Another boom shook the hall, louder this time, closer. It felt like the whole prison was holding its breath. Daniel reached the gate, typed in the code, and pushed his shoulder against it. The moment he stepped inside cell Block D, he froze. A single cell door, Marcus Hale's door, was standing wide open. And the inside was empty. Completely empty. A cold wave rolled through Daniel's body. His mind could barely understand it. Escape was impossible. Every door could only open from the control center. But this door was open. Not broken. Not damaged. Just unlocked. He walked inside the cell slowly, like the air itself might be dangerous. The light flickered. The room was tiny, just a bed, a toilet, and a small desk bolted to the floor. The bed was perfectly made. The sink was dry. But on the wall, scratched deep into the concrete, were 4 words. "The game has started." Daniel stepped backward, heart racing. Something else lay on the floor. A small silver object that reflected the light. He picked it up with shaking hands. A key card, one used by the guards. But this one had been cut open and reassembled, like someone had broken it apart and rebuilt it. Somehow, it still worked. Daniel whispered to himself, "How did he even get this? How did he do any of this?" His radio crackled. "Officer White, we have movement on level 2. A sensor tripped near the service tunnels." Service tunnels. The oldest part of the prison. The part almost no one ever went into. Daniel ran toward the stairs, but before his foot touched the first step, a voice echoed over the speaker system. A voice no one should have been able to reach. Marcus Hale's voice. Calm. Cold. Clear. "Hello, Daniel." Daniel spun around so fast he almost lost his balance. He stared at the intercom speaker like it had turned into a snake. Marcus continued, "You've been waiting for something like this, haven't you? Something to finally break the silence of these walls." Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. His mouth felt glued shut. Marcus breathed out softly. "Good. Then follow me." The intercom clicked off. Daniel's skin crawled. This wasn't an escape. This was a challenge. A game. And Marcus Hale was moving through America's most secure prison like he already knew every door, every code, every blind spot. Which made no sense. Unless he had studied the prison long before he ever arrived. Daniel raced down the stairs and reached the bottom level. The hallway lights flickered above him. That meant only one thing. Someone was messing with the power lines. He reached the end of the hall and saw something that made his blood run cold. The door to the service tunnel was cracked open. It had a lock so strong it needed both a physical key and a digital code. It was never used. Most guards didn't even know it was there. But someone had forced it open, not by breaking it, but by tricking the locking mechanism itself. The wires inside dangled like strings pulled by invisible fingers. Daniel lifted his flashlight and stepped inside. The tunnel smelled old, like dust and cold metal and something else, something rotten. Pipes ran along the walls. Light barely reached the floor. Daniel's footsteps echoed, loud in the darkness. Up ahead, something glimmered. Daniel pointed the flashlight forward. It was a message written in dust on the wall. This way. His heart hammered so hard it felt like it might break his ribs. Every instinct told him to turn back, to call for backup, to not walk into a place where a dangerous inmate was leading him like a mouse into a trap. But Daniel kept walking. Because if Marcus Hale disappeared into the tunnels under ADX Florence, he could come out anywhere in the prison. And if he escaped the prison entirely, the entire country would be in danger. Daniel followed the tunnel until it opened into a wide maintenance chamber. Old pipes hissed. The room felt colder than the rest of the tunnel, like something was breathing inside the walls. A soft dripping sound echoed. Then Daniel saw it. A shadow moved behind one of the pillars. He raised his flashlight. "Marcus," he yelled. "Show yourself." The shadow didn't run. It stepped forward, and Daniel froze when he realized it wasn't Marcus Hale at all. It was another inmate. An inmate who should have still been locked inside his own cell. A tall man with angry eyes, holding a metal pipe, standing between Daniel and the only exit. Daniel whispered, "How did you get out?" The man smiled slowly. "He freed us." "Who?" "The man who opened the doors." Daniel's throat tightened. "Marcus Hale." The inmate stepped closer. His grip tightened on the pipe. "He said you'd be coming. He said you'd try to stop him." Daniel felt his heartbeat thudding in his ears. "And he said," the man lifted the pipe, "I should keep you busy." Daniel stumbled back. The inmate charged, and the screen of Daniel's flashlight flickered as everything around him exploded into chaos. And then, just as the pipe swung toward Daniel's head, the lights went out. Every single one. Pitch black. And Daniel wasn't sure if the next breath he took would be his last. For a moment, everything inside ADX Florence felt frozen in time. The hallway was black as ink, the lights gone, the buzzers silent, and all Daniel Ruiz could hear was the heavy breath of the man charging toward him. The metal pipe cut through the air with a sharp whoosh, passing so close to Daniel's head that he felt the wind brush his cheek. If he had moved even a second slower, that pipe would have smashed his skull wide open. Daniel stumbled backward, his boots sliding across the concrete. He couldn't see the attacker, couldn't see the hallway, couldn't see anything at all, just darkness swallowing the entire place. The pipe hit the wall behind him with a loud clang, sparks flying in the dark. Daniel dropped to one knee, trying to stay low and aware. His heart hammered in his chest like a drum. He grabbed his radio, praying it still worked. "Control, this is Officer Ruiz. I'm under attack. Emergency on lower tier C. I need backup now." Static crackled. No voice answered. That was impossible. ADX radios almost never failed. But tonight, something was very wrong. The silence in the radio wasn't just equipment failure. It was a warning. Daniel had no time to think. Footsteps thundered toward him again. He rolled out of the way as another swing came, smashing into the metal bars beside him. The whole hallway trembled. The attacker grunted in frustration. Daniel could hear him groping through the dark, searching for another strike. "Come on," the man roared into the darkness. "This place ends tonight." The voice was deep, angry, and familiar. Too familiar. Daniel whispered the name under his breath, not wanting to believe it. Marcus Hale. Marcus Hale, the same inmate Daniel had seen earlier staring too long into that air vent, the same man with the rigid shoulders and the quiet, calculating eyes. Marcus Hale, the man serving life with no chance of release. The man who had nothing left to lose. Daniel tried to back away, but Marcus swung again, and this time Daniel's hand caught the pipe by accident as he tried to shield himself. Pain shot up his arm like fire. The force knocked him back against the wall. Marcus wasn't talking now. He was breathing hard, searching for Daniel like a predator hunting in the dark. Daniel knew he couldn't win this fight blindly. He had to reach light, any light. He turned and ran, counting on his memory of the hallway. He could feel Marcus chasing him, his footsteps stomping against the floor like an animal. 10 steps. 12. Then Daniel's shoulder slammed into a wall he didn't expect. He cursed. He had misjudged the corner. Marcus' footsteps grew louder. Closer. Daniel felt along the wall, hands shaking, for the emergency breaker panel. He knew it was somewhere near the door to the stairwell. He kept patting the surface until, click, His fingers found a small metal box. He pulled it open. Inside was a tiny manual lever. Daniel yanked it down. For a second, nothing happened. Then, flash, a single emergency light turned on at the far end of the hall, blinking in slow, bloody pulses. The red glow filled the hallway and finally revealed Marcus Hale. The inmate stood only a few feet away, his face twisted with rage. His eyes glowed under the red light, wild and furious. The metal pipe rested in his hands like a weapon forged for destruction. But what froze Daniel wasn't the pipe. It was what Marcus had strapped to his waist. A small gray device with red wires sticking out, something Daniel had never seen inside ADX Florence before. A detonator. Daniel gasped. "Marcus, what did you do?" Marcus grinned, his teeth gleaming in the red flashes. What no one else ever had the guts to do. He raised the pipe again. Daniel swallowed hard. His heart pounded. He knew the truth now. This wasn't just an attack. This was a coordinated plan. Someone had helped Marcus get equipment no inmate should ever have. Someone had cut the power. Someone had disabled the radios. Someone had set all of this up. And Daniel wasn't just in danger. The entire prison was. Before Daniel could talk, Marcus charged again. Daniel ducked and dashed toward the stairwell door. Marcus swung wildly, hitting the door and bending the metal. Daniel grabbed the handle and pushed with everything he had. It opened. He stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind him. Marcus pounded on the door, screaming. The sound echoed through the stairwell. Daniel stepped back, breathing fast. His arm throbbed. Sweat dripped down his face. He needed to get upstairs, fast. The central power controls were on the next level. If he could reach them, he could bring the entire prison back online. If he could do that, guards could lock down the riot before it exploded into something worse. But as Daniel climbed the stairs, he heard something that stopped him cold. Above him, on the next level, men were shouting. Heavy footsteps. Metal objects slamming. It sounded like chaos. He wasn't the only one under attack. The riot had already spread. Daniel hurried to the top of the stairs. The door leading into the upper corridor was cracked open just enough for him to peek through. The entire area glowed the same red emergency lights, and shadows of inmates ran across the walls. Inmates were out. They were supposed to be locked inside their cells, but somehow they were roaming freely on the tier. Daniel pressed his back against the wall and peered out more. 3 inmates were chasing a lone guard. The guard ran for his life, calling out for help, but no one answered. Daniel felt sick. ADX Florence was designed so this exact thing could never happen. It was impossible. Yet here it was. But Daniel couldn't help the guard, not yet. If he died stopping one fight, the whole prison could fall. He had one job, reach the control room and restore power. He moved through the darkness as quietly as he could, slipping through broken light and red shadows. His boots barely made a sound on the floor. Every few seconds he paused, listening, making sure no one spotted him. He turned a corner and froze. 2 inmates stood right in front of him, blocking the hallway. They had no weapons, but Daniel knew that didn't matter. These men weren't amateurs. They were hardened, tough, and angry. One of them squinted through the red light. "Hey, that's a guard." Daniel had no time to think. He sprinted back the way he came as the 2 inmates charged. Their footsteps thundered behind him. One grabbed Daniel's shirt, pulling him back. Daniel twisted hard, ripping the fabric and slipping free. The other inmate reached for his belt, but the stairwell door was close. Daniel rushed toward it, lungs burning. He pushed through the door, and another inmate stood on the stairs, climbing up. Daniel's eyes widened. There was no path down, no path up. He was trapped. The 2 inmates behind him entered the stairwell. All 3 men now surrounded him, 1 above, 2 behind. Daniel backed up slowly, step by step, his hands raised in front of him. His heart thumped like a hammer. He tried to speak calmly, even though fear tightened every muscle in his body. "Listen, stop. You don't want to make this worse." The inmate above him laughed. "It's already worse." They began closing in. Daniel looked around, desperately searching for something, anything, to use. The stair railing, the walls, the broken radio in his hand, the pain in his injured arm. Nothing helped. He was cornered. But then he remembered something. The emergency light. It wasn't strong, but it was bright enough to blind someone if pointed directly into their eyes. Daniel grabbed the light mounted on the wall and yanked. The screws snapped from the weakened metal. Sparks flashed as Daniel ripped it free. It wasn't a weapon, but it was something. The nearest inmate lunged. Daniel swung the light upward. The bulb flashed in the man's eyes. The inmate shrieked, covering his face. Daniel used the moment to shove him backward. The man tumbled down the stairs, hitting each metal step with a thud. The second inmate tried to grab Daniel from behind, but Daniel hurled the emergency light forward, hitting him in the jaw. The bulb shattered, sparks flying. The man screamed as he fell to the ground, clutching his face. The third inmate, the one above, charged with a growl. Daniel had no weapon now. No light. No radio. Only fear. The inmate grabbed Daniel by the collar and pulled him up the stairs, slamming him against the metal railing. Daniel gasped as pain shot through his ribs. He struggled, kicking and elbowing, but the inmate was stronger. Much stronger. "Power's staying out tonight," the man hissed. Marcus made sure of that. "And you're not leaving this stairwell alive." Daniel felt the pressure tightening around his throat. His vision blurred. His breath faded. He tried to reach for the railing, but his hands slipped. The inmate pushed harder. Darkness filled Daniel's sight, until suddenly a loud blast shook the stairwell. A shockwave rolled through the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. A deafening alarm triggered, shrieking like a siren of doom. Both Daniel and the inmate froze. The man let go of Daniel's throat, stunned. "What was that?" he muttered. Daniel coughed, trying to catch his breath. He already knew. That sound, that force, that blast. It came from deep inside the prison. Marcus Hale's detonator. Something big had just exploded. And whatever it was, it had just changed everything. The inmate turned toward the sound, distracted. Daniel's eyes widened with horror as he realized what must have happened. Marcus hadn't just cut the power. He had blown open an entire section of ADX Florence. And Daniel whispered the words that chilled even his own bones. He's trying to bring the whole prison down. The inmate spun back toward him. And the chapter ends right there, with both men staring at each other, the prison shaking, alarms screaming, and Marcus's plan finally beginning.